Hello there, and welcome to the Meaningful Stitch. This is episode 21, and I am Amy Palco, and I'm coming to you from Edinburgh, Scotland. And this is my digital home from home, a place where I get to share with you my knitting practice and my knitting projects. And unusually for Scotland in October, I am having to work with some very bright sunlight today, so I've had to angle the camera a little bit further around in the room just to try and make sure that we don't all get blinded by it. But before we begin on all of the knitting, and there's quite a bit of knitting to share with you, I wanted to share with you a card that I had drawn. And I've drawn it from this deck here, which is by Kim Krantz, and it's the Animal Spirit deck, the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit deck. And the card that I drew for us for today is this one, Swan. I love swans. So in the guide it says, effortless creativity, sensitive mystic, elegant power. The swan represents heightened creativity. In Hindu mythology, the goddess Sarasvati, the embodiment of language, creativity and artistry, rides on the back of this graceful creature. The swan is ready to take us there, to the fluid realm of writing, creating and reflecting. This potent and healing energy is not to be taken for granted or taken lightly. When the swan card appears, your soul is calling for attention, for solo time. An inner voice is waiting to be heard, an inner vision likely to be revealed. Isn't that beautiful? Such a lovely card. I love the illustrations on this deck. And I chose this deck specifically because in my Patreon we're about to start doing a reading adventure. And I've done a few of these already. We've covered Kissing the Hag by Emma Restall Orr, and the one before that was Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. This time we are looking at this book here, Foxfire, Wolfskin and Other Stories of Shape-Shifting Women, and it's by Sharon Blackie. Now this will be the first fictional text that we're going to be looking at together, and actually unlike the other two, I have not read this one, so I'm going to be reading it along with everybody else. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm excited to discover what we find as we read all of these stories together. In the Patreon, I'll be sharing some written posts and I'll be sharing some video posts as well. The written posts are going to be available to all subscribers. If you subscribe at the first tier, which is £5 plus VAT, then you will have access to all of the written posts, and you'll also have access to this podcast episode 24 hours before it is available to everybody else. So that's one thing, and then if you subscribe to the next tier above, then you'll also have access to all the video content as well, and you get some video extras. Also on Patreon, I have started to post the show notes. Now the show notes are available to everybody, not just to subscribers. They don't sit behind a paywall. So if there's anything that I speak about in the course of this episode, you just have to click the link in the description box below that says show notes, and it'll take you to a post. And that post will give you all of the information, plus links, plus photos. Unlike on YouTube, the Patreon posts aren't character count restricted, and I'm also able to post up photographs so I can show you exactly what it was that I was speaking about, and you'll be able to link it a little bit more closely. So I think that's a real benefit, and that's available to everybody. So you just need to click that link. You don't have to pay any money or anything like that to see the show notes. It's all there. So just to be super clear. So we start the reading adventure this Saturday. I'm going to put up a little introductory post, and then we're going to start reading these stories together. So like I said, really excited about that. It's all about, as it says, shape-shifting women. So we're really tapping into the power of animals and the metaphors and symbolism that they hold for us. And for me, this is one of the ways in which I invest in meaningful making and meaningful knitting. I like to have something to think about while I do my stitches. So I'm quite excited about that, and I hope you'll be excited about that too. One last piece of admin before we get on to the knitting, and that is our All the Shawls cowl, which is finishing up on the 31st of October. which is actually really soon. I don't quite know how that's come around so quickly, but it's finishing up on the 31st. To submit your finished objects, please use the hashtag AllTheShawlsCalFO on Instagram, and or you can put your finished objects into the finished object thread in our Ravelry group. Links to all of these will be available in the show notes. So if you put that into either of those two places, then you'll be eligible to enter into our prize draw. And I've been sharing some of those prizes over the previous episodes. So I'm really excited about that coming to conclusion. I'll be sharing some of the beautiful shawls that have been finished and shared. And yeah, there's just so much inspiration. So if you are looking for a shawl pattern, then you might want to go and check out both the hashtag and the Ravelry group if Ravelry is available for you, because I'm aware that it's not available for everyone. Right, oh my goodness. Okay, so what am I wearing? Well, unlike in most episodes, I begin with the knitwear. I'm not going to begin with the knitwear this time. I'm going to begin with this. This is my Highland Mist kilt. Now, you can only see a little bit of it, but there you go. Last episode, I interviewed my daughter, Aurora, who has a business called Northern Lights Kilts. And over lockdown, Aurora attended the Edinburgh Kilt Academy and qualified as a kilt maker. And now she has her own business making kilts. And so it was really exciting to share that interview with you. Really fun to do the interview, and then really lovely to share it with all of you. And what I was so encouraged by, and what Aurora was so encouraged by, were all your lovely comments. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who took the time to give her a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of love, send a little bit of support her way. And certainly if you know of anybody who is looking for a kilt, anybody getting married in the near future or who has a big event, then please do keep Northern Lights Kilts in mind. And again, I'll leave the link to that in the show notes. So that is my Highland Mist kilt. It's very beautiful, and this is the pink velvet jumper that I knitted to go with it. And this is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. I think I have shared this with you quite a few times, certainly in the knitting of it, but also because this is not the first pink velvet that I have ever knitted. So this one is knitted in Studio Donegal's Darney, which is a 4-ply tweed. And I'll just show you the tweed because it's kind of like got a beautiful reddish fleck to it. Here we go. Seeing what our lighting is doing. Hang on a second. See whether we can improve that slightly. So there we go. We've got this kind of reddish fleck, and this beautiful yoke has been done in mohair that I've held double. So this was a club colourway from Springtime from Ching Fibre, and it was kind of flecked with purple and these kind of green and blues. Really beautiful. So I held it double because the pattern actually calls for fingering weight suri, which is actually also in the pattern, it's also Ching Fibre. But I've used this variegated mohair silk held double, and that I think has actually worked really well. So if you have a really beautiful skein of hand-dyed mohair silk and you're wondering what to do with it, you might consider doubling it up and using it in a yoke pattern like this, because I think it's worked out really beautifully. I did size 3, which I think gave me just 1 or 2 inches of positive ease. I really like how it sits on me. It's a very comfortable jumper. I do actually have enough yarn to knit full sleeves. However, I did know that I was knitting it for this kilt, and so and kilts can be quite warm. So I decided to give it short sleeves, but I may change my mind and knit the sleeves a little bit longer. So that is an option. And actually that gestures to something else that I might be speaking about later on, which is about transforming our knits. But we'll get to that shortly. So there you go, that's what I'm wearing. I'm wearing my beautiful Northern Lights kilts in Highland Mist, and I'm wearing my pink velvet jumper, which is actually blue, blue velvet. And that is in the Studio Donegal Darney and the Ching Fibre mohair silk. So there we go. I don't have any finished objects to share with you. I have been busy knitting on my whips, and actually I don't have that many whips to share with you either, but I will share them with you all the same. So the first thing to share is this, which I am so in love with, I cannot tell you. This is the Sugar, which is a design by Julia Wilkins, and she has the podcast with Matilda, and they have Julia, which is called Julia and Matilda's Greatest Knits on YouTube. And I saw her designing this jumper on various different episodes of that podcast and really loved it, and then kind of got a little bit fixated on it, so so then I decided that I really had to knit it for myself. So this is where I'm at. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? I'm so pleased with it. I'll show it to you up close. So this caramel colour here is Rauma Lamel Garn, which is lamb's wool. And this bright pink pop here, well, that is my mystery cone, which apparently is Shetland. I weighed it before I started and I had 750 grams, so plenty for the project and plenty for other projects too, I suspect. It's really lovely because it's got these kind of blue and gold flecks through it, which work really well with this kind of rich caramel shade. I am knitting the size 2XL because my gauge was completely off, and I think that's because it's supposed to be knitted in Helix, which is a base from La Bien-Aimée, and it's a light fingering weight, and so you're supposed to knit the light fingering weight two together. So yes, I think you get a different weight of yarn doing that than just doing it with fingering weight yarn, which is what I'm doing. So I changed things up a little bit and have adjusted for the sizing, and so I am knitting the size 2XL, but that will give me somewhere between the sizes medium and large. So it'll still have positive ease. I'm hoping it's going to have about 4 to 5 inches of positive ease, and the rib is really quite a tight rib, and I'm going to replicate that on the cuffs and the neckband, just so that it really kind of brings it in, and then you've got this kind of blousier, sort of more sweatshirt fit, I suppose, in the body. I am only noticing now, actually, now that I'm looking at it in the camera, that when I move from knitting in the round to knitting flat, you can see there's really quite a difference in my fabric that I'm getting there. So I'm hoping that will block out just fine. So when I think I showed this to you last, I had just finished knitting in the round. So since then, I've knitted the front all together with the two sides. And now I have knitted the back, and I have cast off for the neck, and I'm working on the back shoulder, which won't take me very long. So I suspect that I'll get the back completely finished today, and I will seam the two shoulder seams together, and then I'll be all set to pick up for the sleeves. So I'm really excited by this. I think it's really very lovely. It's very fun, and I love my colours together. I just love everything about it, actually, so I'm really pleased with it, and can't wait to have it in my wardrobe. So the next thing that I'm working on, and I need to give a spoiler warning here, is the Shawlography by Stephen West, which is the mystery knit along at the moment that's running. So we've had 2 clues. I've finished both clues. So this is a spoiler warning for both clues. See it, and this is it. Isn't that just beautiful? Oh dear, I am now losing my stitches. So I am knitting this in Holst Super Soft. I am really pleased with how it's working out. My colours are Viola, which is this beautiful lilac, Jasper, which is this dark red, brandy, this bright red, and then I have scarab, and then I have straw. There we go, and you can see how all of this is playing out. It is such a fun knit. I'm really, really enjoying it. The first clue took us up to this point here, where we did these I-cord loops. I've never done I-cord loops before. I decided that I was going to hold some mohair with my loops, and so you can see that's created this kind of variegated look, but it's actually made them look a little bit like fuzzy caterpillars, which I actually really like. And then after that we've got this clue 2, which was this slip stitch section, these welts, which are really interesting, which I've done in scarab, and then we had this triangle colour work section here, which I've done it in the jasper and the brandy, and then the baubles. And the baubles were done in a way that I hadn't done baubles before. It was almost like creating like a mini I-cord. However, so I just decided I was going to follow the instructions, and rather than do the baubles the way I would usually do baubles. But instead, I did actually do a tiny modification, which was I wrapped my yarn anti-clockwise around each bauble and pulled tight before slipping the next stitch. And that's just to prevent it from popping through the back, because as you'll see, that's the back of my work. So it really, the bauble isn't going to pop back through. It's going to stay at the front. It's always a little bit of a gamble to make a modification in a mystery knit along, because you never know whether that was a mistake or not. However, I am hopeful that was a relatively minor modification and that it will still work out. So fingers crossed that wasn't an error. I can't think how it could be, but that's the only modification that I've made. And then after that, we were doing these short row wedges. Now for these short row wedges, we were to use our yarns D and E. And for me, that is this scarab and straw. So it's my two neutrals. So I decided instead of doing my two neutrals, I would actually hold some of this variegated mohair that I'd held for the I-cord loops with scarab. So we've got you can see there, once it's blocked out, you'll really see it much clearer. So you've got the plain stripes of straw and then the scarab held with the mohair. Again, the mohair is from Ching Fibre. It's a hand-dyed mohair silk, and it's in the colourway Obsession. And it's a beautiful variegated dark red and with little sort of pops of blue. So I'm really enjoying it, and I was a little bit uncertain after I did this whether I was happy with it, because we've got this very kind of bright and clearly demarcated colour sections, and then this felt a little bit painterly, you know, a little bit watercolour, a little bit more diffuse, and I wasn't sure whether I liked it or not. But actually, as I knitted on it a bit more, I got a bit more used to it, and actually now I really love it. So next clue 3 will be out on Friday. I'm so excited to see exactly what it's going to be and what our next knit is going to be. It has included so many different techniques, whether that's been slip stitches, whether it's been short rows, whether it's been I-cords, whether it's been colour work or baubles, or garter ridges. So who knows what we have in store for the next clue, but I'm really very, very excited to find out. So I cannot wait. So I'm looking forward to when that clue comes out and I can settle in with it and give it a good read through and start the next section. So there you go. I have got these on. It's too short a cable, unfortunately, to be able to show you the full shape that is starting to form. Basically, we have the semicircle, and then we have these two short row wedges or wings, which are elongating and I think kind of contributing towards what is looking more like a crescent shape shawl than a semicircular one. So there we go. That is my my Shawlography. As I'd mentioned in previous episodes, my colour choices have been inspired by my Gran's old knitting bag that I recently received, and I thought it was a really lovely way to explore some of those colours that were in that particular fabric. So I'm really excited by it, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying the community as well. You know, looking at everybody else's images using the hashtag Shawlography MKAL, and also on the Ravelry group, there's a Ravelry group particularly set up for this MKAL, so you can go and check out everybody's progress there as well. I have very specifically chosen an image to put up before I show any of my work in progress, and this is because, like I said at the beginning of this section, that I'm very aware of spoilers. So if you do not want to have spoilers for the next sections, then you know, people do seem to be kind of minding that on Instagram. So you can look relatively safely, but you have to be aware that not everybody is going to be doing that. So there you go, those are my two main works in progress. I am still working on the half and half wrap, which I do actually have here. I wasn't going to show it to you because I haven't done anything on it. My focus has been on the Shawlography and on the sugar sweater. But here's the half wrap, and as you can see, I haven't done a stitch on it since I spoke to you last time. So this is Slow. Again, it's Holst Super Soft. This colourway is Slow, SLOE. It's a lovely, very, very dark purpley shade. It's very beautiful. I'm really pleased with it, how it's knitting up. And I'm just going to share it with you because it was just so delightful to see images coming out from Rhinebeck, because Caddy Jack's Knits have been hosting a knit along for the half and half wrap for about the last year or so actually, and it finally concluded, officially concluded, I suppose, this past weekend with a meetup at Rhinebeck. And so you got to see some images, or maybe you got to attend, which in case, lucky you. and it was just so delightful to see all of these beautiful wraps and these beautiful colours. Jackie wrote an incredibly beautiful poem, and to kind of really honour the whole experience of knitting these wraps in community. And so yes, if you want to go back and have a little look through the hashtag #halfwrapcal, you'll probably see some images there. And I suppose the only other thing that I'm knitting on, which I had mentioned last time as well, is the quadrangle spires. Again, I haven't done a stitch on that either, so I'm not going to bother showing that to you. But it is still very much a work in progress, and it's still alive. It's still something that I want to work on and want to complete. So what's next on my needles? Well, I am absolutely going to be working on all of those works in progress, but I do have a plan for what I want to cast on next. And this is because the weather has started to turn. Even although we have a glorious sunny day today, the climate now is really pretty chilly. So my husband has been feeling the cold, and so I had promised him that I would knit him a cardigan. And this is going to be the Letho Wee by Natasha Hornby. And I am going to be knitting it up in colours of his choice, which are, and it's in the yarn Drops Charisma, which is 100% wool from Drops. I bought mine from Wool Warehouse. This is the colours that we're going to be knitting it in. So the light grey is the main colour. The dark grey is going to be the main contrast, and the gold is going to be the pop. So I think that's going to be really lovely. It's going to be very warm, very cosy, and hopefully keep him warm throughout the winter months. So that's what I want to cast on next. And yes, then I won't feel quite so bad about casting on all the other things for myself. So that's my plan. But other than that, my main plan, and I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm approaching my birthday, and I think birthdays are always an invitation into self-reflection. And so I've been thinking back over this past year and thinking about the next year and what I wanted to achieve. And actually I realised that rather than thinking about things that I wanted to cast on and things that I wanted to create, which I'm always thinking about to be honest, but I really wanted to fix the things that are in my knitted wardrobe that really need some transforming. They need a bit of love, and so I would like to give them a little bit of that. So first of all, I'm going to have to do some mending. So I wanted to show you this, and this is the Maeve. Oh dear, I've got some hair on it. This is the Maeve, and it's by Carrie Bostic Hogue, and it's knitted in Drops Nepal, which is a wool alpaca mix. I'll put it on actually because it's such a lovely cardigan. I really like it, and it's nice to wear over dresses and nice to add as an additional layer, and I do really like it. In fact, I liked it so much when I knitted it. I knitted myself another one in orange, and then I knitted one for a friend in kind of like a dark petrol colour. So, but as you can see, it desperately needs debobbled for a start. And also in the previous flat that I lived in, it did have an issue with moths. And so it has, I think I've already fixed something in the sleeve, but I noticed that in the shawl collar section there is some holes, and so it's going to need a little bit of work. Of course, now I've said that, I cannot find it to save myself, but trust me, there is a discernible hole in the fabric. There it is. Okay, so I've got some more of this yarn. So basically what I'm going to do is, on the wrong side, I'm going to take the matching yarn and I'm just going to follow the line of the stitches, and I'm going to go across, and then I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to go back across a few times as I fill up this hole and secure all of these stitches. And it won't be an absolutely seamless repair, but it will be serviceable and it will rescue this. Alternatively, because it is close to the edge, I could technically rip back and then reknit, but I don't think it really warrants that. I think I can do a perfectly fine repair on this. So that's one way in which I'm going to transform this knit, is I'm going to repair it. But that's not all I'm going to do. I am going to do some alterations. So first alteration is going to be on my Astrid. I love my Astrid. This is Astrid by Junko Komoto. I've knitted it. The main colour is a shade as a cone, actually a Shetland cone from Jameson Smith, not a mystery one. I did purchase it, so I know where it came from. But it's this lovely sort of peachy, soft orange shade with green fibres through it. It's so unusual. I really, really love it. And I've matched it up with some Ralma, which is this Ralma Phenol PT2, which is in this bright coral here, and this dark green, and this peachy colour here. That's the Ralma. And then the amethyst there is Holst Super Soft, and this lovely chartreuse is Garthenor Priscelli. So I really used this I took this jumper as an opportunity really to use up my leftovers whilst pairing it up with a cone. So I ended up with a very large, cosy, beautiful knit, but actually used up quite a lot of leftovers. So it is gorgeous and I love it. I had already made quite a large modification to the sleeve because I had finished it off and then I wasn't happy with it. I found it very gappy. Gappy sleeves for me tend to catch on door handles. Don't know if anybody else has that same issue. But yes, so this is, I ended up decreasing stitches here and then knitting a longer rib cuff, and that really solved the sleeve issue for me. However, the pattern, and I did just follow the pattern calls for this rolled hem, And I find that because of the rolled hem, it creates a very sort of A-line shape in the body, which I'm just not that happy with, if I'm completely honest. I have worn this jumper quite a few times, and in fact it's a testament to how many times I've worn it that the yarn is not, the fabric is not bobbling even in the slightest. So it's bearing up beautifully. But yes, I'm just not that happy with this rolled hem. So I'm going to take it back to these two garter rows here, and I might rip those out as well actually, and then I have more of this yarn on the cone, not a lot, certainly not enough to do another, but I'm going to rip it back and knit a ribbed hem, and I think that'll just kind of bring it in a little bit and give it a bit of a more give it a bit of a better shape for me, because this doesn't really do my body shape any justice. So there we go, that's an alteration that I'm going to make. Another alteration that I want to make is on this, and this is the Rocket Tee. Again, this is Ching fibre mohair silk in another Spring Club colourway. It was kind of like this very pale bluey green with speckles of black and fluorescent yellow. I teamed it up with Azare Highland wool in Sky, and I think the two are beautiful together. I really like the pattern, but I don't like how I've finished it off. So I'm not happy with my I-cords on the sleeves, on the neckline, or at the base. And I'm absolutely claiming full responsibility. This is not the pattern at all. This is me. I would usually go up needle sizes for I-cords, because normally I'm using an I-cord, putting an I-cord onto a shawl rather than a garment. That was not the right decision for this, and I should have known that when I did it on here, and I shouldn't have replicated it elsewhere. That was absolutely my own silly fault. So I'm not happy with my finishing on this tee, and because of that I haven't worn it, which is such a shame because I love this tee. I love the yarn. I think it's beautiful, and it would absolutely be in regular rotation in my wardrobe if it was not for these little issues. So I do have some of this mohair left, but actually I'm inclined not to use it because I have a little bit left of the Azare Highland wool. So I think I'm going to finish it off in the Highland wool. I'm going to rip off on these I-cords, these I-cord edgings, and then I'm either going to knit an I-cord edging using a smaller needle to make it a neater edge, and so the fabric won't flare in the way that it is. And I might do that around this neckline, but then I really am quite inclined just to do ribbing, a little bit of ribbing on the sleeves and at the bottom of the tee, rather than having, because again I'm having the same issue with this as I am with the Astrid, which is that it's flaring out and creating kind of a more an A-line shape, which is not really a good shape for me. So there we go. That's going to be another alteration on what is otherwise a finished garment, really. But I'm glad that I've got yarn left to fix both of those. Now I also am going to be adding some things to some knits. So let me show you this one. This is the Hannah jumper by Irene Lim. It's got a gorgeous yoke on it, you can see here. Isn't that lovely? This yarn is Drops Alpaca. I think it's their dark maroon, and I've held it with a strand of Azare mohair silk in black. It's kind of created this lovely dark wine, and honestly, see the feel of this fabric? It is so lovely. But you'll see as I hold it up to myself, the neckline is huge. Now I've tried to remedy this once already by adding in an I-cord, a tight I-cord, unlike the last one, to see if that would kind of pull it in a little bit, but it hasn't really done the trick. So what I am actually considering is taking that I-cord back out, knitting a bit of a ribbing, but maybe actually creating some little eyelets in the ribbing, and so threading through a ribbon, which will then just kind of pull it in and make it a bit of a feature and put the tie at the back. So that is what I'm considering for this, to fix this particular issue. I'm blowing out terribly, sorry. But to fix this particular issue, that's what I'm considering. This was a lovely knit. It's really beautiful. It's got twisted ribbing, which kind of creates this chevron shape here, which is almost like the leaves of the plant. You see, with the flowers, the baubles, and the leaves, and here coming down to the base, and then at the bottom that's kind of replicated with the shaping at the top of the twisted rib edging. So it's a lovely jumper, really beautiful. I really like it. I wish I could wear it a bit more often. And actually, I quite like a wide neck, but this is too wide. It doesn't stay on. So there we go. I'm going to be adding a ribbon to this, and I'm going to be adding a ribbon to this. So as you can see, it already has ribbon. This is my moon shadow, and this is a beautiful design by Julie Dubrow. I think I knitted this last year. It's in Exquisite Lace by West Yorkshire Spinners, which I think is a BFL silk blend. I just absolutely love this colourway. I seem to remember it was called Mayfair. The sleeves are epic. They will take you a long time. They will be worth it. It's lovely. It's got a little bit of lace at the bottom. This feels like a fancy knit. You know, this is like an evening knit, which is, I don't have many of those, which is why I really appreciate this one. But I don't really like my ribbons. They feel a little bit, they feel like they detract from the knit rather than complement it. So I popped along to the Haberdashery Edinburgh Fabrics, and I picked up this instead, and it's just a much thinner, finer velvet ribbon than the one that's in already, so you can see the difference there. And so I'm going to be replacing this bigger ribbon with this finer one. So that's my plan for that. So that'll be quite a quick fix, especially seeing as I have already bought the ribbon for that. While I was at Edinburgh Fabrics, I bought some more ribbon, and this time it's for my Stonecrop Cardigan. Now this was my first steek, and I followed the instructions for a crochet reinforcement before I did that. But actually, I don't know, because I'm not a steek expert by any stretch of the imagination. This is the one and only steek I've ever done. I felt as though the crochet reinforcement using the 4-ply yarn had resulted in quite a bulky sort of edge. So I feel like you can't see it when you're wearing it, certainly, but I do feel like it was a little bit bulky. So I kind of fastened it down by over stitching it, and that helped a little, but actually I still think it looks really messy. So what I actually want to do is I want to use this ribbon and over stitch my steek with the ribbon, just because I think this is a beautiful jumper, beautiful cardigan. It has lovely yarn. This is Speckled Hen by Berlin Yarns, which is a blend of Cheviot and Hebridean yarn, and I've matched it up with that same Rauma Phenol PT2 that you saw in the Astrid. It was the leftovers from this that I used in the Astrid. So it's beautiful yarn. It took me a long time because, as I mentioned last time, I made a mistake and I had to rip it all back because of my gauge. The buttons are vintage buttons from my grandma's collection. So I love it, and it's really dense fabric because of the change in the gauge that I had to make, and it just deserves to be finished off more beautifully than I currently have it, and so I'm just aware of that. So I think that looks ugly. So I would much rather finish it off by adding this ribbon, and I'm just going to hand sew that down. It'll probably just take an evening, but then it'll be done and it'll be a beautiful garment. So what was that? That was altering, it was mending, altering, adding. I'm afraid, my loves, I have also some frogging. So this is the first thing I'm going to frog, because I don't think you can fix it, and I don't think you can alter it, and I don't think you can add a ribbon to it to make it better. And I love the yarn. I really love the yarn. The yarn is very special to me, and it's I just think it's a shame that it's in this garment. So so this design is by Petite Knit. It is the Sunday cardigan mohair edition. I knitted it in yarn from France, La Droguerie in Bordeaux. And I think they've also got one in Paris. They have their own yarn blend, and this one's called Coquette, and it is a mohair polyamide mix, and it's 3 strands of different colours together. So we've got like an orange, a red, and like this navy blue held together. And I really, really love the yarn. I just think it's gorgeous yarn. This is the colourway Montespan. And it's too big. I shall show you. It feels like it's, maybe you think it looks okay, but for me it feels too big. It's always falling off. It's the neckline doesn't seem to be right. It's, if I bring it up to sit on the back of my neck, then it doesn't sit properly here, so I have to put it quite far down the back of my neck, and even then it's not right, unfortunately. And so I'm going to pop it in a bag in the freezer and leave it, and then I'm going to take it out, and then I'm going to frog mohair. Wish me luck. I can think of quite a few other projects that I would knit this in. I was really disappointed when I finished it and tried it on and realised that it was not the fit that I wanted. And again, like I said, the yarn is beautiful. I do actually have some of this yarn left. It was also on a cone, but I can think of other things I would rather do with this yarn. So rather than altering it or saving it or even giving it away, actually, I would rather frog it and use the yarn for something special. So, and one more frogging, and actually this yarn has been frogged more than once. This is the Magnolia, what's it called? Magnolia Bloom. No, Magnolia Chunky Cardigan. I have knitted it in yarn called Jaeger Naturgarn, which is like a bulky weight, single ply, 100% Icelandic yarn. It came from my great auntie's attic, and I've had this yarn for a long time, but it's not right. Can you see this? I'm only seeing this now. That's really strange. Must be a change in the dye lot, but you don't see that in person, interestingly enough, but absolutely seeing it on the camera. But that's not the reason why I'm going to rip this back. It is once again because it's far too big. It's absolutely, there's masses of fabric around the back. And again, this is like special yarn. This is yarn that's from, you know, family's attic stash. So I want to keep a hold of it, but it's not currently being served in this particular garment. That is so interesting that line is showing up in this, and it's so distinct because you don't see that really in person at all. That's fascinating. So I'll remember that. And yes, it was a lovely pattern. It's as you can see, it's got this beautiful lace and bobble design round the bottom of the hem. Again, twisted rib, beautiful, beautiful. Really nice increases as well through the yoke section. It's by Camilla Vad. I think she's got a variety of patterns that use this particular stitch pattern. I just got the gauge terribly wrong and it's far too big. So I'm going to be frogging that as well. I won't need to freeze this to frog it, unlike the mohair, but that's another plan for this winter. It is quite a, I mean, this yarn is obviously no longer available. I think maybe it was available in the 1960s, but it is a little bit more rustic, I suppose, but actually it's actually very soft. Interestingly enough, I had this knitted up in a jumper that I had taken the design from an old Rowan magazine. Well, it was a new Rowan magazine when I knitted it, but it had like a large funnel neck, and at the time I really wasn't very used to more rustic yarns, and I just couldn't bear the feeling of this funnel neck jumper. So I ripped it all back down, because again, as I said, it's good wool, it's special. I don't want it not to be used, and I knitted it in this because I thought it's got a wide neck, it won't be up close, but it is going to be frogged again. So there we go. That's some transformational projects for my knitting that I'm looking forward to, because I think it's really going to give me these lovely garments back into my wardrobe, or the lovely yarn back into my stash. And I think that's worth doing. I think these projects that we invest our time and energy in, and these resources, this yarn, which is an amazing, beautiful material that we get to work with, it deserves our little bit more time and attention than perhaps we were willing to give it in the first instance. So I'm going to be returning to all of those projects, all of these garments, and doing the work that's necessary to fix them so that they can enter back into my wardrobe. So there we go. That's my transformational knits, purchases and gifts. Well, I haven't done very much purchasing, I have to say, but I did get this. I had pre-ordered this because, gosh, where did I first find out about it? I can't even remember now. It must have been on Instagram. But then I followed up on some interviews with Gudrun Johnson, who wrote this book and put together this amazing collection of her designs and designs that have been inspired or replicated from her mum's work. And I instantly knew that I wanted it, and I put in a pre-order. And so it arrived the other week, and I am so impressed with this, like so impressed. It's called The Shetland Trader, Book 3 Heritage. As I said, it's by Gudrun Johnson. Gudrun's mother was a knitwear designer on Shetland for a few years, a good few years. And basically she would commission local knitters to create her designs. And Gudrun, when she became an adult, a grown woman, she decided that she was going to become a knitwear designer. So she started to explore her mother's work. And while she was in Shetland, she was offered she became aware of and then was offered this beautiful jumper, which she then figured out how to make and created a design, a pattern for it. And so that, I think, really kind of sparked this beautiful collection. So I'm just going to show you, one of the things I love about it is that it does actually have the backstory of her mum's knitwear design company, and it's got some amazing images in it, like this. The foreword is written by her dad, which moved me to tears, I have to say. It's just an incredibly beautiful book. There's some images there taken from the original catalogue, the knitwear mail order catalogue. And then we get into the designs. Oh, I should also say there's some gorgeous botanical illustrations which are on these double pages, which are just incredibly beautiful. And these are done by Gudrun's sister. Here we go. And Gudrun's sister Beth, I think her name is. Anyway, I'll show you some of the images, some of the designs. This is called Vare, and this is the one that's on the cover. And it's so wonderful. I love it so much because it combines this colour work with this lace, and the colour work can either go through the lace or not. In all of these, there are various different options. So you can have like a turtleneck, or you can have a crew neck, you can have a balloon sleeve, or you can have a straight sleeve. You can include colour work in the lace, or you can leave the lace plain. There's a variety of different options, and you can see some of them there. There's the turtleneck with the balloon sleeve. There's the straight sleeve and the plain lace. And this is the crew neck one here. So the other lovely thing is that the illustrations of the schematics have been done by Gudrun's daughter. So that's very sweet too, and they're really lovely. This is another one. This is called Maywick. It's taking the razor shell lace and creating this top with negative ease. Really, really like this one. I'm very interested in casting that one on. Then there's this one, which is Bunaberry. Again, it's got this kind of turtleneck, balloon sleeves, colour work on the balloon sleeves. The rest of it is quite plain, as you can see. But that colour work is replicated on the next garment, which is the vest. So you could actually knit the vest to match the jumper, which I think is very clever. And I love this particular colourway, this grey with the creamy neutral and then this kind of corally pop. I think it's really lovely. And actually, I love the edging on this. I am not really a vest person. I don't think I've ever knitted a vest. I am absolutely going to knit this vest. I really like this I-cord edging. I will have to be careful on that. I have form. The I-cord edging for the neckline, I think, makes it look really neat. So I won't be going up a needle size for that. And we've got this as well, which is very cute. The Zurich. You can see the colour work, and I just think, like, look at that detail, the way in which the colour work is there, and then you've got this garter strap, but look at the shaping in that. It's just beautiful, just a real eye for detail, which I think is so lovely. And you can see it's got the colour work on the pockets also. And then we have these two dresses. Aren't they beautiful? So this is called Elsk and Hjarta. And again, they've got these balloon sleeves. Apparently, these are based on or inspired by other dresses that were in this mail order catalogue, but those dresses were actually maxi dresses, and the plain stockinette would have been knitted on knitting machines, and the colour work and the edging and finishing would have been done by hand. But of course, because most people these days will be doing hand knitting for the whole garment, and so these are not maxi dresses anymore. They're much shorter dresses, so there's less to be done. So there we go, and there's the hjarta. And the models are just absolutely beautiful. And the images are gorgeous. It's just the quality of the production. It's been published by Pom Pom, and they've just done such a good job. This is one of the shawl designs. Again, this is the razor shell lace pattern. And what's so unusual about this one is it's knitted from the lace up, so these are actually decreases. Normally you would start, say, with a garter tab cast on, and then you would increase until you got to your lace border. With this one you knit the lace border first, which I think is very interesting. And then these really cute hats, a berry option and a beanie option. My grandma was actually just saying yesterday that her dad used to, or her granddad would knit these Fair Isle beanies. This is, again, it's another, I know I'm saying this a lot, but it's absolutely on my list of things that I want to knit. And then we've got this gorgeous little headscarf as well. It can be worn as almost like a neckerchief or as a headscarf, and it uses very little yarn. It's the only pattern in the whole book that uses lace weight, and it uses 169 meters, so not very much at all. But when my son's girlfriend saw this, she said that she really loved this, so I might have to get my knit on for Christmas. The second and of the two shawl patterns is this one here, so it's very similar, but it's much shallower. So it's more of almost more of a scarf, really. You can see it. Isn't that lovely? And the colourways that have been chosen for this are just exquisite. So there we go. That's all the patterns in the Shetland Trader. Highly recommend you get your hands on a copy. If you like a 70s vintage aesthetic, this is absolutely for you. If you're not that keen on the 70s aesthetic and you're more into it for the Shetland colour work and lace, then you can make those alterations. You can choose the straight sleeves and the crew necks instead, or you can go full 70s with the balloon sleeves and the turtlenecks. I have, after having bought this, I then went and bought myself a couple of balls of Jameson's Spindrift, and I bought it in the colourway Murret, Ivory and Oyster. So these little, aren't they nice? Even when you look at like the natural shade, it's very complex. Here's the oyster. It's like got this kind of beige and then pink. So what I'm hoping to do actually is use these in this jumper here on the front. And as I said before, I had 750 grams of this, so I'm going to have enough. So I think I might do this in this bright pink with contrast colours. These would be the main contrast colours, and I think that I'm going to have some of the lamel garn left as well. So those would be my contrast colours with the bright pink as my main colour. Is what I'm thinking. That's my dream knitting at the moment. That's what I'm that's what I'm dreaming up. But I do really want to go through my stash and have a little look and see what other bits and pieces I have that I could maybe use, particularly for the smaller projects like the little berry. I think that would be very sweet to have for moving into the winter season. So I actually took this book to show my grandma yesterday. I went for a wee visit through to see her, and while we were talking she said that she had 2 books that she wouldn't be using anymore and I could take away with me if I wanted. And so I took away these 2 books here, the traditional sweater book and traditional island knitting. There are so many beautiful patterns in here and really not that dated. Like, for example, look at that one. It's very similar to the Maywick, but it is in the old shale lace instead, and it's got these little buttons up the back. I just thought that was very pretty. So there's a Shetland lace section in this one. Again, this is more of the razor shell. But look at that, with the wide sleeves. I just think that's very pretty. But it's got masses of jumpers and things. I thought this was a fascinating one. Look at this. So you've got two different textures. So you've got this kind of bobble and cable, and then you've got these twisted stitches. And then you've got almost, it's like an asymmetric collar. And then these two sets of buttons, and then the contrasting textures on the sleeves. I don't think I've ever seen a design like that before. I was really fascinated. It's got this lovely jumper with the shawl, cardigan with the shawl collar. One of the things I think is so special about these kinds of designs is that they don't look like they've aged. You know, they feel like they're timeless. Colour work men's jumper. That was a very interesting one as well. It's a Gansey where the cable is going across, like horizontally, and then moving into the vertical with a split hem. So just really, really lovely patterns. I thought these were lovely too. This is called an Eriskay Gansey. It's got a little bit of lace up here. Just the shape of it I thought was really lovely, and then there's kind of the buttons up the neck to create this beautiful collar. Then there's the Sankar jersey, you know, Sankar gloves. So honestly, I could just go through every single pattern here with you and show you just amazingly beautiful work. The other thing I would say too is that in this one here, it'll give you quite a bit of information about the history of the knitting, and then it'll also give you some stitch patterns that are specific to that island or that set of islands. And we've got some Icelandic knitting there as well, the yoked jumpers, beautiful cardigan, colour work cardigan in Fair Isle. Let me see, what else do we have? Oh yes, the Shetland knitting, but look at this, is them blocking the haps on the boards. Isn't that an incredible image? So there you go. I got those two books, and those were a gift from my grandma. So I'm enjoying going through those, and yeah, I'm really interested to see how this all inspires my knitting practice moving forwards, because I'm sure it will. It can't help but do that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to what I'm enjoying, and after that I've got a poem for you, and then that's us all done. So we're nearly at the end. So what am I enjoying? I'm loving Who Do You Think You Are, which is the BBC show about genealogy and finding out your personal ancestry. The first episode was on Josh Widdicombe, who is a comedian, and I was just completely thrilled by his journey, which starts with a family rumour that they are somehow connected to Barings Bank, the bank that went bust in the 1990s, and that's just the starting invitation, because then it just moves into something entirely more grand, which is very exciting. And then this week's episode was with Judi Dench, and she ends up going over to Denmark, and just the most amazing connection and instances of synchronicity that are genuinely gobsmacking. You know, when you watch that, you really do wonder whether there is like this bigger plan, you know, where the hand of the universe is guiding us in some kind of intrinsic way. It's an amazing episode and what she discovers. Next week's episode, I think, is with Alex Scott, who's the football player who was presenting the Olympics package along with Claire Balding earlier this year. So she's up next, so I'm looking forward to finding out more about her story. I've also been watching more of Vlogtober. I've really been enjoying Jacqueline Salem's, who's on YouTube. I'll leave a link again in the show notes. Her Vlogtober has been really enjoyable. Rather than doing it on an everyday basis, she's been kind of putting together like short sort of weekly packages. And I think they've been really wonderful. I'm just so inspired by people's creativity. I mentioned Marilisa in the last episode with Girl Meets Yarn, and her Vlogtober continues to be incredibly inspiring. And I just wanted to add Jacqueline Salem into your awareness if you don't already know of her Vlogtober, because that's also very beautiful and very well done, and she's just a true creative soul, so it's very exciting to see what she's creating. We finished watching season 2 of Ted Lasso. I so enjoyed it. I think there's been a few people who haven't been as impressed with the episode with season 2 as season 1, but actually I really enjoyed it. I felt season 1 was more narrative focused and season 2 was more character focused. There's one particular episode called Beard After Hours, which I just think is an absolute masterpiece, and almost was like watching a movie. It was properly brilliant. So if you haven't started watching Ted Lasso, you are in for a treat, and I'm very envious because I've seen it now and I cannot go back and unsee it and pretend to watch it for the first time. So lucky you. The other thing I wanted to mention was Yedra Knits has got a new issue coming out on the 15th of November. This is an amazing magazine that does both Spanish and English. And this upcoming issue combines two of my great loves, which is knitting and tarot. They're looking at tarot as a tool for self-reflection, which is absolutely how I use the tarot. And there's a range of incredibly beautiful designs, which you can now see the previews for. And that's an incredibly exciting project. On the front cover is a beautiful design which is from the designer Julia Wilkins, who has designed this sugar sweater that I mentioned earlier on. And so yeah, I'm gonna put a pre-order in, I think, for Yedra Knits, because it looks very cool. Beautiful shawl patterns and just really interesting. The other thing that I've been doing over the last Friday, I joined in with Cakeapalooza, which was an event at Rhinebeck, and I really enjoyed it. It was run by Christy Glass of Knit and Escape, and it really helped you to feel a part of an event which was occurring, live and in person, but you were joining in with it virtually. And that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to see the different yarn and the different knitting products that people were selling, but also what people were buying and what people were making, and the whole thing was just done really well. There was one segment which included a hike where Christy and Sydney of Squidney Knits went on hiked around some grounds at Rhinebeck, and that was really lovely too, so I enjoyed that segment particularly. However, I think it is important to remember that even although we might look at these big events like Rhinebeck and wish that we were there, but that there is actually a local scene to be a part of. And on that note, I just wanted to share 3 Scottish podcasters that I've been enjoying. One is Brogan, who is Woolly Witchcraft, and she's from Glasgow. She has a really lovely aesthetic. I really enjoy her knits, and I really enjoy just everything that she manages to pull together in her episodes, and I think you might like that too. So again, I'll leave a link to her podcast in the show notes, and I'll also leave a link to the Wee So and So podcast, which is from Kaz. Kaz has had a 4-month break following the death of her husband. We're so glad to see her back and sharing her beautiful knits. She lives a bit further north, and I think you'll really enjoy her too. So I'm gonna add her link as well. And then another one who is very new to me, who's got the podcast Crea Bay Knitting Podcast, and that's Rebecca. And she is from Scotland, and she's living down in London. And she seems to be very prolific. I'm really enjoying all of her knits. And she's already introduced me to some yarns that I wasn't familiar with, and I'm now coveting. So, so yes, you might want to go and check her out also, just if you want some more Scottish accents in your ear. And last of all, I just wanted to say happy birthday to Stephen West. It's his birthday today. He's turned 33. And so consequently he's having his annual birthday sale, which means that his patterns are discounted right the way through this weekend. So if you are watching this when it's just come out, then you might still be able to go and pick yourself up a discounted pattern or 2 or 3. I will certainly be going back through his back catalogue to see if there are some there that I don't have. I have a lot, but he's so prolific, and he's always bringing out the most amazing designs, so I'm sure there'll be a few there that I will be adding to my library. Okay, my darlings, I'm going to wrap things up there. I'm going to share with you a poem, and this poem is from John O'Donoghue's Benedictus. As you know, it's one of my favourites. This blessing is called To Learn from Animal Being. I chose it because of our reading adventure that we're going to be embarking upon just shortly, and also because of our beautiful animal spirit guide. And so here it is. To Learn from Animal Being. Nearer to the earth's heart, deeper within its silence, animals know this world in a way we never will. We who are ever distanced and distracted by the parade of bright windows, thought opens. Their seamless presence is not fractured thus. Stranded between time, gone and time emerging, we manage seldom to be where we are, whereas they are always looking out from the here and now. May we learn to return and rest in the beauty of animal being, learn to lean low, leave our locked minds, and with freed senses feel the earth breathing with us. May we enter into lightness of spirit and slip frequently into the feel of the wild. Let the clear silence of our animal being cleanse our hearts of corrosive words. May we learn to walk upon the earth with all their confidence and clear-eyed stillness, so that our minds might be baptized in the name of the wind and the light and the rain. Beautiful, my loves. I do so hope you'll join me over on Patreon. However, do remember that you do have access to the show notes regardless of whether you are a patron or not. You just have to click that link in the description box. I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks' time. Remember that you have until the 31st of October to put your FO into the hashtag or on Instagram or into the Ravelry group. And in the meantime, happy knitting, and I will see you really soon.